Sometimes, love doesn't step forward, it steps back, not to disappear, but to make sure it doesn't destroy what it's trying to protect. Before anything was said, there was already distance, not the kind created by coldness, but the kind that appears when someone is thinking too much, feeling too deeply, and trying not to ruin something that matters. Imagine two people sitting in the same room, close enough to hear each other breathe, yet separated by everything that hasn't been spoken. One of them wants to move closer, the other feels the same pull, but stays still. Not because the feeling is missing, but because it feels heavy. Heavy with awareness, with memory, with the knowledge that closeness changes things forever. This man has learned something the hard way. He has seen how words can promise more than actions can sustain. He has seen how presence can create hope that later turns into confusion. So this time, he chooses something unfamiliar. He chooses restraint. He tells himself that love is not proven by how quickly you approach, but by how carefully you do. Each moment of silence is not emptiness, but consideration. Each step back is not rejection, but an attempt to protect what feels fragile and real. From the outside, this distance looks like hesitation. From the inside, it feels like responsibility. He is standing at the edge of something meaningful, asking a question most people never ask themselves. Am I ready to be part of this without causing harm? Until that answer feels honest, he waits. Not because love is uncertain, but because it is powerful. Silence is often misunderstood because people associate care with constant reassurance. But silence can also be intentional, thoughtful, and protective. When a man chooses silence while loving deeply, it is rarely because he has nothing to say. It is often because he understands the weight of words. He knows that words create expectations, shape emotional reality, and can bind people to meanings they are not ready to carry. Silence, in this sense, becomes a way to avoid misalignment. It is a pause that allows emotions to exist without being prematurely defined. Space works in a similar way. It is not always distance created by fear or avoidance. Sometimes it is distance chosen to allow breathing room. Emotional closeness can become overwhelming if entered too quickly or without grounding. A man who understands this may step back to let feelings settle naturally. He gives space not to disappear, but to prevent emotional pressure from building. He believes that love should not feel like urgency or confusion, and space becomes a way to preserve calm rather than disrupt it. This kind of silence often appears when someone is emotionally attuned. He senses shifts in energy, tone, and emotional readiness. If he feels that engagement might intensify emotions beyond what either person can hold, he chooses restraint. Silence becomes a form of emotional regulation. Instead of reacting, he responds by not reacting. This choice is active, not passive. It requires awareness and self-control. He is not ignoring connection. He is managing it carefully. Space can also be an act of respect. When a man cares deeply, he may recognize that the other person needs room to process their own feelings without influence. Constant presence can unintentionally shape emotions or create dependency. By stepping back, he allows authenticity to emerge. He does not want closeness that exists only because he is always there. He wants connection that stands on its own. Space becomes a way of honoring the other person's autonomy rather than overshadowing it with his presence. When love goes deep, it stops being only about desire or attachment. It becomes an inner event. A man who loves deeply does not just feel affection. He becomes aware of his influence. He realizes that his words, his moods, his presence can shape another person's emotional world. This realization can be unsettling. Instead of fearing loss, he begins to fear impact. The question inside him shifts from, "What if I lose this?" to, "What if I hurt this without meaning to?" Love, at this level, is no longer impulsive. It becomes reflective, almost cautious, because he senses that emotional closeness carries weight, and weight requires care. This fear of causing harm does not come from weakness, it comes from awareness. When someone has lived enough to know how easily people wound each other, love stops feeling innocent. Past mistakes, unresolved guilt, and memories of moments where words caused damage resurface. Deep love activates these memories. He does not want to repeat old patterns. He does not want his unresolved struggles to spill into something precious. So instead of moving closer, he slows down. Distance becomes a pause for self-checking, a way to ask himself whether he can show up without projecting pain. At this stage, love becomes less about possession and more about responsibility. He understands that closeness can create dependence, expectations, and vulnerability. If he is not emotionally grounded, that closeness could become destabilizing. So the fear is not abandonment, but contamination. He worries that his inner chaos, stress, or emotional inconsistency might disturb what feels pure. This fear can quietly override desire. He may still feel the pull, the longing, the emotional connection, but it is filtered through a protective instinct that says restraint is safer than expression. Psychologically, this is where conscience becomes louder than craving. His inner voice monitors every impulse. He replays conversations before they happen. He withholds words he feels but is unsure he can sustain. He becomes careful with promises, careful with presence. This caution is often misunderstood as emotional distance, but internally it feels like discipline. He is not running away from love. He is trying to meet it without dishonesty. The fear of harm makes him choose silence over inconsistency, space over emotional turbulence. This pattern often appears in people who feel deeply but regulate strongly. They know that love can amplify unresolved wounds. Being close to someone they care about makes their inner conflicts more visible. They see their insecurities, their fear of inadequacy, their unresolved emotional needs. Rather than leaning on the other person to soothe these, they step back. The distance is an attempt to contain their inner process privately. They want to become steadier before inviting someone else into that space. From the outside, this fear can look confusing. It does not resemble dramatic jealousy or desperate attachment. It looks quiet, restrained, and controlled. Yet internally, it is intense. The emotional volume is high, but the expression is low. He is not afraid of losing the connection. He assumes the feeling exists regardless of distance. What he fears is being the source of pain. That fear can outweigh the urge to be close, especially when love is experienced as something fragile and sacred. This is why deep love sometimes moves backward before it moves forward. It creates a moment where the person must confront himself before approaching another. The fear of harm is a sign that love has reached a level where the other person is no longer an object of desire, but a reality that must be protected. In this space, distance is not rejection. It is a form of inner negotiation where love waits until the person feels capable of holding it without breaking it. Emotional self-awareness can quietly change the way love behaves. When a man understands his inner world deeply, he becomes conscious of how his emotions rise, fall, and influence others. This awareness does not always make him more expressive. Often, it makes him more careful. He notices patterns in himself that once operated unconsciously. He sees how stress alters his tone, how fear makes him withdraw, how affection can quickly turn into pressure if left unchecked. Love, instead of feeling simple, becomes layered with observation. He begins to monitor himself while feeling, and that internal monitoring can slow his outward movement toward closeness. This kind of self-awareness is often developed through emotional experiences that were intense or painful. When someone has seen how unexamined emotions can create confusion or hurt, They no longer trust spontaneity the same way. They pause before acting. They reflect before speaking. In love, this reflection can look like hesitation. He may feel strongly but delay expression because he wants to be certain his feelings are stable, not momentary reactions to loneliness, admiration, or unmet needs. Withdrawal becomes a way to test the truth of his emotions rather than deny them. As awareness deepens, he becomes sensitive to emotional dependency. He understands that closeness can create attachment dynamics where one person becomes an emotional anchor for the other. If he senses that he might be relied upon in ways he cannot consistently support, he steps back. This is not rejection, but realism. He does not want to invite closeness if it will later turn into disappointment. Emotional self-awareness tells him that love without capacity becomes burden. So he chooses distance until his inner world feels steady enough to hold another person's emotional weight. This awareness also exposes inner contradictions. He may notice that part of him wants closeness, while another part seeks solitude. Instead of ignoring this conflict, he honors it. He does not rush to resolve it by pulling someone else into the tension. Distance becomes a space where these opposing parts can be understood rather than acted out. He is not suppressing love, he is examining it. This inner examination can be slow, and during that time, outward warmth may decrease even though inner attachment remains. Emotionally self-aware people often fear misrepresentation. They do not want to present a version of themselves that cannot be sustained. In the early stages of love, it is easy to show heightened attention, energy, and availability. But awareness reminds him that emotional intensity fluctuates. Rather than create an image of constant presence, he chooses restraint. He prefers honesty through limitation over connection, built on temporary emotional highs. Withdrawal becomes a form of integrity, a way of saying less but meaning more. There is also a protective element in this self-awareness. He recognizes how easily emotions can entangle two people before either is fully prepared. He sees how unresolved personal struggles can leak into a relationship dynamic. Instead of leaning on the other person for emotional regulation, he pulls back to regulate himself. This self-regulation can feel cold from the outside, but internally, it feels responsible. He wants connection to emerge from wholeness, not from emotional imbalance or need. This is why emotional self-awareness can paradoxically create distance. The more someone understands themselves, the less likely they are to act impulsively in love. They choose timing over intensity, stability over immediacy. Love does not disappear in this process, it becomes contained. Distance is not absence of feeling, but evidence of reflection. It shows a person who values emotional truth more than emotional display, and who believes that real closeness should arrive when both inner and outer worlds are aligned. A strong conscience is not loud or dramatic. It works quietly, often invisibly, shaping decisions before they ever become actions. When a man has a deeply rooted conscience, love does not simply invite closeness, it invites responsibility. He becomes aware that being emotionally present is not a casual act. It creates expectations, influence, and emotional reliance. This awareness can slow him down. Instead of moving closer, he evaluates the consequences of his presence. Distance in this case is not avoidance, it is restraint, guided by an inner moral compass that asks whether his involvement will truly benefit the other person. This type of conscience often develops through lived experience. It grows when someone has seen how good intentions can still cause pain. Past relationships, family dynamics, or moments of regret leave an imprint. Love activates these memories. He remembers times when he stayed despite being unprepared, or when his emotional confusion affected someone else. Those memories now inform his behavior. He does not want to repeat harm, even unintentionally. so he becomes selective with closeness. Stepping back feels safer than entering a space where his uncertainty might hurt someone who matters to him. A strong conscience also creates a heightened sensitivity to timing. He understands that love offered at the wrong moment can still cause damage. Even genuine care can feel overwhelming if the conditions are not right. So he waits. He observes. He chooses silence over premature promises. This is not manipulation or emotional games. It is patience shaped by ethical awareness. He wants his actions to match his intentions. If he cannot offer consistency, emotional stability, or clarity, he would rather offer nothing at all than something incomplete. This restraint can easily be misread. From the outside, it may appear like emotional distance or lack of courage, but internally, it feels like discipline. He feels the pull toward closeness, but his conscience weighs that pull against the responsibility of follow-through. He asks himself whether he can be present not just when emotions are high, but also when they fade. If the answer is uncertain, he steps back. Love, for him, is not about intensity alone. It is about sustainability. There is also a protective instinct embedded in a strong conscience. He recognizes vulnerability when he sees it. He understands that emotional openness creates exposure. If he senses that someone could be deeply affected by his presence, he becomes cautious. He does not want to awaken feelings he is not ready to honor fully. So he keeps distance, not to withhold love, but to prevent emotional imbalance. In his mind, restraint is kinder than engagement followed by withdrawal. This kind of conscience often leads to internal conflict. He may feel torn between desire and duty. One part of him wants connection, warmth, and closeness. Another part insists on responsibility, readiness, and integrity. Distance becomes the compromise between these forces. It allows him to care without overstepping. It allows him to remain honest with himself while still respecting the emotional reality of the other person. Ultimately, when conscience guides love, actions become measured. He believes that love should be safe, not confusing, that it should offer clarity, not emotional turbulence. Until he can meet that standard within himself, he chooses distance. This distance is not coldness. It is an ethical pause, a space where love waits until it can be expressed without causing harm, imbalance, or regret. Inner conflict often shows itself not through chaos, but through stillness. When a man experiences a clash between what he feels and what he believes he should do, his first response is often to pause. Love can intensify this conflict. Desire pulls him forward, while responsibility pulls him inward. He may want closeness deeply, yet feel an equally strong urge to protect, to delay, or to stabilize himself first. This tension does not resolve easily. Instead of choosing one side impulsively, he creates distance as a way to hold both truths at the same time without betraying either. This conflict usually forms when emotional longing meets a strong sense of duty. He might feel warmth, attachment, and emotional resonance, but also recognize practical or emotional limitations within himself. Perhaps he is aware of personal instability, unresolved inner struggles, or life circumstances that make full presence difficult. Love exposes these limitations clearly. Rather than ignore them, he allows them to slow his movement. Distance becomes the space where he can acknowledge desire without acting against his better judgment. Within this inner conflict, there is often fear of contradiction. He does not want to offer closeness while internally feeling unsure. That mismatch feels dishonest to him, so he withdraws to avoid sending mixed signals. Silence and space become tools for alignment. He believes that if his inner world is divided, his actions should be minimal. This is not emotional suppression, but containment. He is trying to prevent inner chaos from becoming relational confusion. Another layer of this conflict is the struggle between longing and self-protection. Love makes him vulnerable. It opens parts of him that are usually guarded. At the same time, awareness of potential pain increases. He may fear losing himself, repeating old emotional patterns, or becoming dependent. Instead of acting from fear, he steps back to understand it. Distance gives him room to observe his reactions rather than be ruled by them. He is not rejecting connection, he is studying his response to it. This inner tension can also stem from competing values. He may value emotional honesty, stability, and consistency, while also valuing freedom, solitude, or personal growth. Love challenges the balance between these values. If he moves too quickly, he risks sacrificing one for the other. Distance allows him to negotiate internally. It gives him time to decide how to integrate love into his life without losing essential parts of himself. From the outside, this distance may feel confusing or painful. It can appear as indecision or emotional unavailability, but internally, it feels like responsibility. He believes that unresolved inner conflict should not be acted out on another person. Until he can reconcile his opposing feelings, he limits his involvement. This restraint is his way of taking ownership of his inner state rather than projecting it outward. In this space of distance, love does not disappear. It remains present, but contained. He thinks, reflects, and slowly works toward clarity. When inner conflict is resolved, movement becomes possible again. But until then, distance serves as a buffer, protecting both himself and the connection from the consequences of acting while divided. Love is often imagined as movement toward, as presence, as constant expression. But there is another form of love that moves inward before it moves closer. Restraint is not the absence of feeling. It is feeling that has learned to pause. When a man loves deeply, he may sense that acting immediately would cheapen what he feels. Words spoken too early, gestures offered without grounding, or closeness entered without readiness can dilute meaning. So he holds back. Not because love is weak, but because it is strong enough to be protected from careless expression. This restraint comes from understanding that love has consequences. Emotional closeness changes people. It creates attachment, hope, and vulnerability. A man who is aware of this does not want to awaken something he cannot responsibly tend to. He knows that attention, affection, and presence can bind another person emotionally. If he is uncertain about his own stability or capacity, restraint becomes a form of care. He chooses not to stir emotional waters he cannot calm later, even if that choice costs him closeness in the moment. Restraint also appears when love is experienced as something meaningful rather than consumable. Instead of using connection to fill a void, he allows love to exist without immediately satisfying it. This can look like distance, but internally it feels like reverence. He does not want love to become impulsive or reactive. He wants it to grow from clarity, not from urgency. So he watches himself. He listens to his motivations. He lets feelings settle instead of acting on their first wave. There is also an element of self-discipline in this form of love. He may feel longing, but he does not let longing dictate his behavior. He understands that desire alone is not a sufficient reason to act. Restraint becomes a way of honoring the other person as a full emotional being, not as an answer to his own needs. He refuses to make love about relief, distraction, or escape. This kind of restraint is quiet and often invisible, but it requires strength. It asks him to tolerate discomfort rather than resolve it through closeness. From the outside, restraint is easily misinterpreted. It can be mistaken for coldness, fear, or lack of interest, but internally, it is often full of consideration. He is measuring impact, not avoiding intimacy. He is choosing silence over inconsistency. He would rather be absent than emotionally unreliable. This is not because he does not care, but because he cares enough to avoid creating confusion. He believes that love should feel safe, not destabilizing, and restraint is his way of maintaining that safety. Restraint is also a response to inner honesty. He may recognize that his feelings are real, but also unfinished. Instead of presenting certainty he does not yet possess, he limits expression. He does not want to promise what he cannot sustain. This creates distance, but it is a truthful distance. Love remains present internally, but it is held rather than displayed. He trusts that what is real does not disappear in silence, and that if love is meant to move forward, it will do so with greater integrity later. In this way, restraint becomes a language of love that is rarely recognized. It speaks through patience, through pauses, through choosing not to act prematurely. It is love that values depth over immediacy, responsibility over impulse, and meaning over momentary closeness. Silence is often misunderstood because people associate care with constant reassurance. But silence can also be intentional, thoughtful, and protective. When a man chooses silence while loving deeply, it is rarely because he has nothing to say. It is often because he understands the weight of words. He knows that words create expectations, shape emotional reality, and can bind people to meanings they are not ready to carry. Silence, in this sense, becomes a way to avoid misalignment. It is a pause that allows emotions to exist without being prematurely defined. Space works in a similar way. It is not always distance created by fear or avoidance. Sometimes it is distance chosen to allow breathing room. Emotional closeness can become overwhelming if entered too quickly or without grounding. A man who understands this may step back to let feelings settle naturally. He gives space not to disappear, but to prevent emotional pressure from building. He believes that love should not feel like urgency or confusion, and space becomes a way to preserve calm rather than disrupt it. This kind of silence often appears when someone is emotionally attuned. He senses shifts in energy, tone, and emotional readiness. If he feels that engagement might intensify emotions beyond what either person can hold, he chooses restraint. Silence becomes a form of emotional regulation. Instead of reacting, he responds by not reacting. This choice is active, not passive. It requires awareness and self-control. He is not ignoring connection, he is managing it carefully. Space can also be an act of respect. When a man cares deeply, he may recognize that the other person needs room to process their own feelings without influence. Constant presence can unintentionally shape emotions or create dependency. By stepping back, he allows authenticity to emerge. He does not want closeness that exists only because he is always there. He wants connection that stands on its own. Space becomes a way of honoring the other person's autonomy rather than overshadowing it with his presence. Silence is also a safeguard against emotional inconsistency. He may know that his feelings are real, but fluctuating. Rather than speak from a temporary emotional state, he waits. He prefers to speak when he can be steady, not when he is emotionally charged. Silence protects against words that might later feel confusing or misleading. In this way, silence is not absence of care, but commitment to clarity. He would rather say less than say something he cannot stand behind later. There is also an inner dimension to silence and space. Love often triggers deep self-reflection. When feelings surface, they bring unresolved thoughts, fears, and questions with them. A man may need solitude to understand what he feels and why. Silence becomes a private space where he can listen to himself without external noise. He is not withdrawing from connection, he is preparing for it. He believes that unexamined emotions should not be placed on another person. From the outside, silence can feel ambiguous. It lacks explanation. It does not reassure. But internally, it can be full of intention. He is thinking, weighing, and choosing care over immediacy. He understands that love does not require constant interaction to exist. He trusts that real connection does not dissolve in quiet moments. Silence becomes a way to let love exist without distortion. Space, too, can be protective. It can prevent emotional entanglement from becoming overwhelming. It can slow a connection down to a pace that feels safe and sustainable. When love is deep, it does not need to rush. Silence and space become tools to protect emotional balance, not signs of detachment. They are quiet forms of care that prioritize long-term well-being over short-term closeness. When you look at all of this together, a clear picture forms. Distance does not always mean absence of love. Sometimes it is the shape love takes when it becomes conscious of its own power. A man who loves deeply may step back not because he feels less, but because he feels more than he knows how to safely hold. Awareness, conscience, inner conflict, restraint, silence, and space all point to the same truth. Love is being filtered through responsibility. This kind of love is quiet. It does not rush, promise, or perform. It watches itself. It questions its impact. It chooses caution over intensity because it understands that closeness can heal or harm depending on how it is offered. What looks like withdrawal from the outside is often an inner effort to protect what matters. Understanding this shifts the meaning of distance. It stops being a rejection and becomes a pause filled with intention. Love in this form is not gone. It is waiting to be expressed in a way that is honest, stable, and safe for both people involved.